Imagine for me, if you will, a small nightmare of mine. It may not be something as scary as getting caught in the wrong part of Duncan, or actually just being in Duncan in general, but, it's still pretty terrifying. My nightmare is a world without humor. A world in which the diminishing state of Miley Cyrus's outfits is no longer funny, but terrifying. A world in which I can't make a pretty girl laugh like I normally could so easily by just asking her out. And these may not be the worst things in the world, and albeit they probably aren't. However, humor does a lot more than just release dopamine in our brains through laughter, and has a huge amount of unappreciated complexities. With the power of humor, we can address sensitive topics, we can gain a better acceptance of self, and finally, and most important, I believe, is we can gain a huge amount of insight into what makes other people tick. Now, imagine a day in this nightmare for me. I wake up, see a mess on my floor, and have a serious and uncomfortable, awkward talk with my roommate, Pablo. Instead of just telling him that if I see one more sock on this floor, I will put everything he owns into a boat fashioned from wood, soaked in kerosene, and set it aflame as it drifts through the waters of Mill Bay. Now, after this awkward encounter with my roommate, who, being a new exchange student from Mexico, probably just nodded along and smiled with everything I said and didn't actually understand it. You know what I mean. I head down to the caf. I notice my friend Xander is wearing Crocs in his feet, and I bluntly and rudely tell him to change, instead of just bantering with him about the fact that he has the world's best birth control strapped to his feet. After this, I head into the cafeteria for breakfast and sit down with a large group, and I, as she previously stated, being from a small town, Red Deer, Alberta, make a few inevitable social mistakes. But without the power of humor, I can't come back from them, right? I can't learn from them, and I may get labeled as something like a hick or a redneck, which I'm sure you all know doesn't actually exist in Alberta. But this may seem poorly phrased, but humor's the social lubricant for the unavoidable friction that's going to occur. And if you can't use humor to learn from mistakes, including social ones, how are you going to grow as a person? This is also pertinent through self-deprecating humor. So after breakfast at the cafeteria, I head back to my room, clean it, damn it, Pablo, and pass a mandated inspection by the grade 12s. I then head off to my math block and notice a girl I find rather attractive is sitting right beside me. And not unlike real life, myself and pretty girls initially, it's terribly, terribly awkward. However, in this humorless reality, I'm trapped. If I say something dumb or make a social mistake, which I'm pretty apt at, if you didn't know that already, I can't come back with it from the power of humor. And then the real awkwardness sets in that we all know and hate. A fight or flight response is initiated. Your blood pressure rises, so you get all sweaty and gross and weird and you have trouble talking, and then blood leaves the extremities, so your hands get cold and clammy. And the same part of your brain that's activated when you break a bone is utilized in the terrible, awkward silence that follows. And can I make a joke about anything, even myself, to convey the admirable quality of humility and break the awkward silence? In this set parameter of reality, the answer is unfortunately no. See, humility is obviously an important value in our society, but it doesn't just pertain not bragging about one's achievements. It also includes the usage of self-deprecating humor to accept your own flaws and check your own ego. When people are acting in an egotistical or overconfident manner, they're often trying to make up for something that they don't feel good about. This concept is called overcompensating, and it's demonstrated beautifully by all the lifted vehicles and trucks in my hometown of Red Deer, Alberta. They visually show the fact that people brag about what they're secure about to make up for what they aren't. And I'll be honest, if I couldn't use humor to accept my own flaws and check my own ego, I could very well be one of those people who hypocritically, and of course, metaphorically, I'm like 5'7", looks down on others. But besides using humor for this purpose, to accept yourself or to address sensitive topics, I believe the most important usage of humor, but ironically the most underappreciated, is the insight it gives us into other people's lives. Many of you at this point have probably toned out because you don't think you can get any funnier after this speech, or at the very least any funnier looking, like my friend Xander. Sorry. However, if we simply observe the usage of humor on others, just as yourselves, then we can learn a lot about somebody. If I took you, for example, to a comedy movie, noticed what you find funny and what jokes you laughed at, I could learn a lot about you. And if I took you to Death of a Salesman and noticed you laughed while everybody else cried, I'd probably extrapolate that you're a bit of a psycho. And if you're anything like one of my ex-girlfriends from back home, I might notice you laugh at both and make you the reason I check the backseat of my truck every time I get in. But In all seriousness, by simply observing humor on others, which doesn't even have to come from us, we can learn what they find funny, what they can and cannot take lightly, and therefore what their values are. I believe one of my greatest skills is being able to connect with people, and often people don't realize that I can utilize and appreciate humor to find out people's common values and find common ground. Our culture is fluid, and humor can be as well, and by utilizing and/or appreciating humor, we can exemplify these traits of adaptability as well. There's a lot of things I could ask of you to take away from this talk, such as embellishing both my looks and my speech, depending on when you might mention this to. However, I would ask a few more important things of you today. Firstly, understand that I'm not asking you to try and be funnier or funny looking like Xander. I'm simply asking you to appreciate humor when used by others and when applicable yourselves. Don't be afraid to take yourself lightly and use self-deprecating humor to accept your own ego and accept your own flaws. Utilize humor in awkward situations, or if you feel like you can't, surround yourself with people who can. And ladies and gentlemen, realize the benefit of insight humor gives us. Use it, appreciate it, because, ladies and gentlemen, you can learn a lot, and it really isn't so bad when the joke's on us. Thank you.